Thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thanks to you, Mike. It's been my pleasure.
So yeah, from what we can tell, you're working on a few apps, paper, a note-taking app, Befit for exercise logging, and a few others. Could you please share a bit more about your background and the different apps you're currently working on?
Yeah, so to talk about myself a little bit, I'm Steve. I live in France and I spend most of my time writing and reading code. I've been doing this for a bit more than 4 years now, and I'm working full-time as a mobile developer. I love to experiment and learn new things, which is why I spend a lot of time on pet projects. And I use these pet projects to fill needs I have on a daily basis. So I needed an elegant and very simple note-taking app. So I built Paper, which is my biggest app today with a bit more than 1,000 active users. Yeah. I needed to track my progress at the gym, so I built Befit. And I created some more apps for the specific needs for myself or my relatives. So yeah, that's who I am.
Oh, awesome. Well, we recently noticed that you tweeted about migrating an app from MongoDB Atlas Device Sync and Realm to PowerSync with Supabase as your backend database. We know many developers are in the same position you were, learning about MongoDB's decision to deprecate Atlas Device Sync and wondering about the best way forward. So could you take us through, how you reacted to that news from MongoDB and, what are some of the steps that you took for your apps to do the migration?
Okay. So I was already thinking about migrating off Realm for a few reasons. I had tried the Supabase plus PowerSync combo on a project and I loved it. I found Realm extremely painful to work with. It was so rigid and you could get runtime errors on even small schema changes, and that was so annoying. You had to go through code generation, which is kind of annoying too. And I felt it was so sensitive to work with, which felt like working on eggshells. And beside that, it felt too complex. I mean, you had to deal with sync rules, schema versions. You either had to upgrade, to not forget about upgrading the schema version, or manually write the migration code when you made a change on model. And yeah, you had to deal with their own authentication system, front-end wise. And it was not compatible with web. I say there were a lot of reasons. So it was not compatible with the web, so I couldn't build a web app, which was requested by my users. And let's not forget about the excruciating switch from local to synchronized mode. So when a user switches from full offline to sync mode, with the Realm, you have to create kind of another database file, and then you have to manually copy the data from the offline database to the sync database. And this is so error prone, and if it gives the feeling of not doing things properly. So yeah, the announcement gave me a solid reason to start working on the migration.
You mentioned there that you looked at our examples, but where else did you learn about PowerSync, or how did you learn about PowerSync, and what made you want to sort of jump in and evaluate it a little bit further?
I think I got to know PowerSync on Twitter from a post from, I think it's Sebastian Rowe. I hope I'm not mispronouncing his name. The creator of HabitKit.
Okay.
Yeah, so out of curiosity, I went to check out how it worked, and I fell in love with the philosophy. Most of my apps, if not all, don't necessarily need an internet connection to work. So the fact that PowerSync lets me make a living with an SQL database while it takes care of synchronizing changes on all the user's device, spoke to me and made me want to try it out, which is what I did.
So looking at the the migration process, what were some basic steps or a couple of outlining steps that you took to move from MongoDB Atlas Device Sync plus Realm to Supabase and PowerSync?
So just for context, I was using Firebase Auth in the legacy version. So I had to authenticate my users on Firebase and Realm since I had to deal with the auth system. And yeah, I tackled a significant, technical challenge. I had to migrate the auth system from Firebase to Supabase along with the user data. So I have to migrate also the user data from Realm to Supabase and the new infrastructure. So this project, I think, had so many components. The Firebase to Supabase migration, which was kind of easy because Supabase offer a lot of straightforward migration tools. So this went well. The second step was the user data migration. And this was a bit more complex due to the user structure. We had offline users without accounts, so they didn't have a cloud sync enabled. We had users with accounts, which means they had sync enabled. And some of these users have their data spanned across multiple devices with different device states. Since we're going to use Supabase to authenticate the PowerSync client against the server side, it was important that the user IDs coming from Supabase came from Supabase and not from Firebase. Otherwise, it would have been difficult to set up PowerSync sync groups.
Yes.
Yeah. So we had to handle user ID changes during the migration while maintaining the data ownership. So each table had an owner ID column for access control, and we needed to update these columns with the new Supabase ID. And to do this, we implemented two key solutions. The first one was a client-side migration flow that will copy the data from the Realm database to the SQLite database. So full offline users will continue to have access to their data. And the second solution was to implement a remote migration tool that will copy the data from the MongoDB collections to the Supabase tables. And thanks to PowerSync, this data will then be synchronized to the user's client database. So yeah, this also means the second solution was relying heavily on the built-in config management solution in PowerSync, sorry, and which was acceptable for our use case, and everything went well. We were able to migrate like 20,000 nodes without any issue. So I think I can say everything quite well. Yeah,
Excellent.
and beside that, we implemented a first upgrade system, a first update mechanism in the mobile app. So users will just to prevent users from continuing saving data in the legacy system. So yeah.
Excellent. Okay, wow, that's impressive. And just a side question on that, in terms of the migration, did you do a lot of testing prior to that? Did you write any automated tests there, or was it sort of a manual process of testing out that migration from from the user side?
It was manual.
Okay.
I I mean I first released the beta version. Uh, it's not a real beta, a closed beta, if you can say it.
Okay.
So I knew people around me that were using the app, so I can just test the migration and make sure everything worked well. And we had backups in case we faced any data loss, so everything was in control.
Excellent. Well, that sounds like a good approach there. But yeah, moving on, you mentioned a bit about sync rules there, and that's quite a big component of the PowerSync system. So along those lines, how did you find adjusting from working on Realm to working with SQLite, and then the sync rules driving that data that's being pushed down to the SQLite database, the local SQLite database? How did you find that adjustment and working, with the differences in Realm and SQLite?
I didn't face any major issue because I've got familiar with this sync rule system in Realm. I've faced a lot of issues with the sync rules, so I got to know it a bit more. And PowerSync has a really great documentation, so I was able to just adapt really fast with the YAML syntax and just get things to work. And they have a lot of examples, which helped a lot to get things work.
Yeah, and then just to wrap it up for today, what advice would you give to anyone who is wondering how to react to the Atlas Device Sync deprecation?
First of all, the only thing to do right now is to consider migrating to a new solution because they are closing. So for me, PowerSync is the ideal solution, and I have few reasons to say that. The setup only took me 1 to 2 hours around the first time around. So I was really impressed to have everything just working just by following some few steps, and I was impressed. The solution is non-intrusive in the sense you keep control over how write operations are carried out on your server. And I've seen they now support MongoDB, MySQL, and Postgre, which is great. So you don't, for people having their infrastructure on Mongo, maybe larger apps that don't want to switch from Mongo to Supabase like I did, they can just use PowerSync as the sync engine and just having the application working without any interruption, which I think is cool. And they have integrated support for using Supabase as their backend. So this is pretty cool when you are using Supabase like me. And to date, the only maintenance work I've done on my implementation has been to add new features. So everything just works, no alerts, no problems, everything just works. So yeah, that's my advice.
Excellent. Well, thank you for your input there. Well, it was nice speaking to you, and thank you for joining us. And yeah, we wish you all the best here from the PowerSync team, and thank you for joining us here and sharing your advice and input. Appreciate it.
Thanks to you, Mike. My pleasure.